Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
You're listening to another Big Buck Breakdown from the Element Podcast. What's going on, all woods people? Hey, before we get started, our friends at Exodus Trail Cameras wanted us to let you guys know that since this is the giving season here in December, that they have created a limited edition laser engraved 2% for Conservation Lift 2. So on top of them donating 1% of their revenue and 1% of their time annually to nonprofits, they'll be increasing their donations for this limited edition camera to 10% of the sale.
That's a pretty slick deal, man. And really, one of my favorite parts is that you get to choose what nonprofit that your money goes to. So you can go to their website and click the drop-down menu, and you can choose from a whole lot of nonprofits, including like some of our favorites, like the QDMA, the TRCP, or even the National Wild Turkey Federation. What you need to do is you need to head to their website on December 13th at 9 a.m. That's when these things go on sale. You can find the limited edition camera and select it under the camera tab and select your nonprofit, and then you will receive your Exodus Lift 2 that is backed by their 5-year no bull corn or deer corn limited warranty.
That's right. There's an extremely limited quantity of these, so if you're interested, go check it out. Head to the website, and you can find out all you need to know. So now let's go to the podcast, and on today's episode, we have a good buddy of ours that's been a friend for several years now, Dylan Dowson from OnX. Dylan has put me to shame, to say the least. Like he killed a really nice deer, and I shouldn't have done it, but I was like, man, congrats on the buck. And then obviously, naturally, you kind of want to send your pictures too, but like in this case, I was like, I don't really want to do that. But no, he's a super cool guy. He's very involved there at OnX and gets to hunt a lot, which is cool. It's a cool thing that like for your job, you're kind of like also expected to hunt. Like that doesn't happen
One
very
day,
often,
sir.
you know what I mean?
One day.
One day, yeah. So pretty neat thing there. But before we get into the interview with him, we did a late season. Is it too late to get your buck podcast recently? And where we tried to kind of like inspire people, like, hey, get out there and keep hunting. And I'm sorry that we did that, guys. We don't really want to hunt anymore at this point. We're done. That was a lie. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, that's not completely true, but
It's not completely false.
we after doing that podcast, we headed to the woods very inspired. I felt like we kind of hyped ourselves up
Too much,
and then we kind of let ourselves down a little bit.
Well, we went to the wrong woods, I think.
Did we?
Yeah.
Should have went to the North Woods.
We should have gone somewhere north of here, like anywhere north of here. We did some public land hunting yesterday, actually, here in Texas, which we have not done much of. And it was, we were reminded, it was very reminiscent of the years past.
Many a day spent on Texas public land.
I actually calculated afterwards, and I was hoping that I wouldn't have to do this, but I have definitely done over 100 trips in and out on public land in Texas. That is, walk-in public land, kind of open to the public stuff. I've done over 100 trips without loosing an arrow. You've killed a coyote when I was with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you killed that hog or not, but
It's
he
dead.
looked real kill at first. Yeah. A hog.
A squirrel.
You killed a squirrel. That was not a good deal. And then you killed a meat buck.
You weren't actually there, but you were close.
Not. I was close.
Yeah.
You killed that meat buck, which...
and I've loosed 2 more arrows besides that.
Oh, that's right. Stars
I missed
killed.
I missed a spike before the meat buck.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Shot
Dude,
over his back.
I'm sorry. It's only funny because you killed that day, but
Yeah.
it was a funny series of events because I can hear you just like, dadgummit. And then like afterwards, like as soon as you missed, you knew, and it was like whatever you said. And then like after that, you were like, I'm the worst hunter in the world or something. Like I'm such an idiot. Like you said it on the camera interview, and I was like, dang, this guy's having a hard day.
Oh man, it's just honestly, if I have too much time to think about something, I mess it up. I think because like that deer, I was like calculating, like okay. He's at this range, and I need to put this in my pin, and then I end up shooting over his back.
Like,
and then a couple hours later, I was real rushed, and it's like, 30 yards, twink, and it happened.
Smoke City. Yeah, in through both shoulders, and just dropped him.
Dead in his tracks.
It's crazy. Like, did not hit the spine, but he just stopped and dropped.
Yeah,
like
he
crazy.
just gave up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an animal instinct, like a large extinct eagle. I grabbed him by his shoulders.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah. Or a blue heron.
That's right. That's right. But anyways, we had a pretty dismal day on Texas public land, which
I like that.
if you've been considering hunting Texas public land, let me give you some advice. Consider other things.
I got a message yesterday from a guy. It's like, man, where'd you shoot that buck, on public? And it's like, man, I'll give you an idea, but I don't, like, just because I kind of know you, but I can't tell you exactly,
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he was like, I was thinking about hunting some Texas pub next year, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, have you been hunting? Because if you've been hunting private in Texas, don't go do don't go do the public thing.
Man, we kind of like to crack on it, but it is fun. I had fun yesterday.
Me too.
We learned a lot about deer. Even whenever you're not like seeing a ton, you see sign, you understand. Like yesterday, I learned what some pressure can do to a place, because there's definitely some pressure in a place that we thought there wouldn't be. But either way, like I guess if you want to take the farceness out of this, if farceness is a word, like the thing if you take the funny out of it, like. Don't go to Texas public land expecting to kill a toad. Go in there looking to have a good time.
Yeah. Go in there and try to shoot a doe, I think. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing that you and I haven't done. Like, we've always, like, we do all this hard work in the summer, and I think it's warranted, but, like, we do this hard work in the summer, and then we go into a place during the season and think, I'm not shooting a doe because I worked really hard to run trail cameras in here, and there's a couple bucks, and if I shoot a doe, it could really mess this place up.
Yeah, or deer populations it's not very dense, and you shoot one of the 3 does that live in that area, that's 1/3 less estrus running around out there.
That's right,
whenever
man.
it's time for big bucks to come around.
That's right. It's going to draw them to a different place where a doe hasn't been shot, you feel like. So, I don't know. It really is fun, and I like this time of year a lot, especially the last 2 years, because we've had pretty wet winters, and you can just see trails so good this time of year, man.
Yeah, it's different.
And like, if it's a good trail, and not a whole lot changes next year, you can expect that in October when the trail isn't there because deer, here don't weigh a whole lot and whatever else the factors may be, they're not very dense. You can still expect that trail is technically still there. So, anyway, yeah, it was fun, man. We almost didn't see a deer. we did see one right at the last light that we rattled in.
We did have like a good bit of I say salt in the wound a lot. What's another way to say that? Dust in your eyeball.
In the wound.
We did have a good bit of dust in our eyeball while we were riding from one place to the next yesterday. there were 2 bucks fighting in the road ditch.
Oh, my gosh.
On the way from one place to the other.
Hey, you said it best. You're like 300 yards from here, which is, by the way, where the public would be.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. And I was like, you know what? It really, we've also seen another good buck right there. Like, that's the truth. I mean, like, they know where there are a ton of people hunting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's unfortunate. I know we talk about this, or we have over the course of this podcast a lot, about how hard it is here and everything. But yesterday I was like, man, so many people talk about these states, you know, and how hard it is. And I'm sure it is. And I'm not saying this is the hardest by any means, but like some of these states that talk about how hard the deer hunting is, they've got ag everywhere. Like still got a lot of deer. Just because you're not shooting 3-year-old plus bucks doesn't mean that you don't see deer when you go out. And there's not does running around and stuff because there's corn and whatever else. Like we got Bermuda, you know what I mean? Cedar trees. Like it's just tough, man, when you start throwing a bunch of hunters in the mix. So but you know, we're still, after all of that being said, we are still probably a little bit excited to get back out to some of that stuff because we haven't checked all the cameras.
No, we haven't.
We checked a good, what we consider a good place, a good camera yesterday that had really almost nothing on it. But we did have one surprise visitor on there, which is a buck you have chased for years now.
I thought you were talking about that guy.
Well, besides the guy, looked right into the camera.
Well, I think you're a little more convinced than I am, but I still do think probably that this is a buck that we call Leader, who's been in my life since 2016?
Yeah.
2016.
When you got married.
Yeah, it was like the week before I got married, I saw Leader.
Yeah.
And here we are in 2019. He's like 6 or 7.
He's worse than he was last year.
Yeah, his antlers are smaller. So he's
Which,
like 6
or
7 years old.
We could have killed him last year on Thanksgiving.
That's 2 years ago.
Was it? Mm-hmm. Dang it.
Yeah, dude, we're getting old. Yeah. On Thanksgiving, though, we could have. There was a discrepancy on a public boundary, and we thought he was not.
Thank you, OnX, for clearing things up at this point.
OnX.
I wish it would have been a little earlier at all.
Yeah. Oh, well, man, I tell you, old Dylan Dowson has got it pretty clear on how to get it done on the public land or block management or whichever one it was.
Yeah.
Either way,
public access.
Yeah, public access. It's all public land, right? It's like if it's public access, public land, gray area.
Yeah, sure.
Anyways, Dylan knows how to get it done, apparently. Yeah. So why don't we get some details from him about his hunt?
Do.
All right, on the phone right now, we have got Dylan Dowson with OnX. Dylan, what's happening, dude?
Hey, I'm just up here in Montana enjoying the nice cold weather in December.
How cold is it there? We really like weather reports on the Element Podcast. I don't know if you know that, but
it's actually not bad at all. I mean, we're at like a brisk 20 degrees today. So I actually just talked to my dad who's over in eastern Montana, and I think it was like sitting around 4 degrees today with a pretty hefty wind. So could be worse.
There's something in like when you say a single digit temperature that it just like there's some kind of like just grit to it. You know what I mean? Like it just sounds so terrible. It's something that doesn't happen very often here.
Yeah. Last year we hit I think it was like negative teens and 20s for about a week straight.
Oh gosh, how does anything survive up there, man?
Just have to be tougher.
Yeah. Imagine.
I believe it. So do you speak in wind chills or do you speak in actual temperatures? Because we're not going to name any names, but friends of ours from up north like to really speak in wind chills sometimes. So is that like a thing that people up there do?
Yeah, so I'm from eastern Montana originally.
Yeah.
And the thing with that over there in North Dakota, we're so close to North Dakota too that like a lot of the times the wind chill is, 20, 30 degrees colder than the actual temperature. So it's like a huge difference. A lot of time over there, we would speak in wind chill, which it wasn't completely uncommon to hit like a negative 30 day or two in a row with wind chill. So yeah, it just kind of varies depending on where you're at.
Yeah, it varies on how tough you really want to sound, which it's all way tougher than me, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. And speaking of that, you toughed it out recently in some of that cold weather and shot what looked to be like an absolute tank up there. Can you tell us a little story about that buck, man?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as far as the weather side of things, it wasn't too bad this year. Up here in Montana, and that's where I was born and raised. I've always lived in Montana, so I'm, really familiar with the hunting up here. We're fortunate enough to be able to, we have a pretty lengthy archery season, and then it rolls over into rifle. So if you're not successful during archery season, you have about a month during rifle season, to fill that tag. And, here in Montana, we get what we call an A tag. You can use it on either a buck or a doe, whitetail, or a mule deer for most units, for most general units. Typically myself, I've shot a couple whitetails, but prior to this year, it's been, I think I figured 11, 12 years since I've shot a whitetail. I'm pretty much a mule deer hunter. Takes a pretty special whitetail for me to, pick my head up and get real interested.
Yeah.
Especially during rifle season. But yeah, so it's, like I said, long seasons. And then we are fortunate enough to be able to hunt during the rut. It usually starts late October, goes till the end of November, which is kind of our peak rutting period, both for whitetail and mule deer here in Montana. So, but yeah, to kind of back that up, with working at OnX here, I work on the community side of things, and a lot of the people that I work very closely with are big hunters. And so last year we did this hunt late November where we all went out, kind of made it a work event a little bit, capture as much content as possible. And it was a successful hunt. I think we shot 2 mule deer bucks and a doe. And then this year, we went somewhere completely different, completely new, different part of the state. And it was, us same core group of people, the community side of things here at OnX. And, we kind of went over there with the plans of finding and hunting mule deer. I knew some whitetail would be around. I've seen them in that general area before. But, it was kind of a mule deer hunt. And, I know you guys saw the end of it, and I don't mean to spoil too much, but it ended up being turning out to be a whitetail hunt with the exception of, a mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and you went in there and found a buck on like the first day and just smoked him, or how'd it go?
Yeah. So, we're hunting strictly public land, areas that we had never hunted, like I said. Used the app to scout out some areas. And what we were doing is, they weren't huge chunks of public. It was more like a section here, a section there, a sliver, that might be 2 miles long that will run up into a coulee that's surrounded primarily by private land. So we're hitting these little pockets. And the very first morning, to kind of preference this too, we had, I think, 4 days for this hunt. And then I was going to then go home to eastern Montana and hunt for the remainder of the following week. Because that was Thanksgiving week, and I usually just take that week off, go home and see family and, go hunt with my dad for a week and so on and so forth. So I had about like a 0% chance that I thought I was going to shoot a deer on our hunt. I almost didn't even bring the rifle as a joke. It's like, well, I'm going to be over back at home for over a week, and that's, I'm more than likely just not going to shoot a deer. Well, long story short, ended up throwing my rifle on my pack, and me and Jared, we split up, and Jared and I headed out in the morning, and we went to hike up on this bluff where we could overlook this like creek bottom that came out of private onto a small chunk of BLM. And the reason we picked that, I guess, was from the road, you couldn't see it. You had to scout it up and then hike up over about 1.5 miles to get to it. And fully expecting to see mule deer the whole time. Well, we get up there, immediately spot some mule deer, and I'm looking through the spotting scope at, a decent mule deer buck. I think he was a 3x4 chasing some does. So it was great to just find deer right away on public land to begin with. And as I'm looking at that deer, Jared looks over and spots this whitetail buck, and right away, he's like, man, that's either a stud whitetail or a, pretty nice mule deer. But he was kind of in the draw, hard to tell exactly what he was. But when he stepped out and I got the spotting scope on him, it took about 3 seconds to realize that, that was a shooter buck for sure. I still remember he was looking at us, and he was about 750 yards away. and he was looking straight at us. And I even got this on phone scope video. But he was looking at us, and, you know, he's just the type of buck where he's a little bit narrow, hard to judge from the front.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he cranked his head and looked like completely sideways, I saw, you know, he was a big 5 and his 4s were like 8-9 inches long.
Oh.
Like, yeah. And the sun was coming up, just like glaring off of him. And right away I was like, yep, that one. And we were working with a chunk that wasn't really big. You know, it was a chunk of BLM, completely surrounded by private, and he was like smack dab in the middle of public when we saw him. And once we did that, we did see a couple of does off to our left that were kind of working up the coulee, and we just kind of assumed, you know, I feel like at that point, I think I shot him November 22nd, but I feel like at that point, you know, the whitetail rut was definitely winding down. Obviously, the bucks were still interested, you know, trying to find a hot doe, but it wasn't peak at that point for us. Mule deer, I feel like, was a little bit more peak, but whitetail was, you know, kind of coming off of it. And, you know, we just played it like he was going to follow those does, even though he was probably a couple hundred yards away from them. And Jared and I threw the packs on and started to make a play on this buck. And we get up over, and at this point too, you know, Jared's the one who spotted this buck. And so, you know, we're making a play on him like Jared's gonna, you know, be the shooter on this deer. And we get up there on this knob expecting to, you know, sit down, have a calm situation, be able to turn him back up, glass him back up, and go from there, you know. But we get up on this knob and we peek over, and we didn't know it was him right at first, but we knew there was a buck standing there like real close. He seemed like he was super close, but he was about 200 yards. But on a flat down there, and look up like, man, that's a nice buck. Like, that has to be him. And right away, he just knew something wasn't right. I don't know if he saw us kind of skyline a little bit, or, you know, it was just a mature deer and had a sixth sense that something was up. But long story short, you know, we're up there, and I threw the binos up and I tried to get the spotting scope on him just to make sure it was the same buck. About that time, he kind of whirled and took off, and I saw, you know, how long his 4s were. And so I knew immediately it was the same deer. And right away, you know, I had my pack off, my gun kind of ready, just put a shell in. And right away when he took off, Jared's like, he's going, grab your gun, get on him. And so, you know, hiking up there to try and get Jared on this buck, in the split second where he took off, Jared knew my gun was ready, and I was basically behind it, and I had a better chance of getting on him. And, you know, he did the selfless thing of telling me just to grab my gun and get on him. So I kind of ran up the hill, threw the bipod down and got on the rifle. And he was kind of running away. You know, it wasn't like super spooked, but he just knew something was up. And, you know, I asked Jared for a range, and Jared ranged him and looked at the app and made sure he was still on public, which he was real close, but, you know, he was definitely still on public. And I don't know if I whistled at him or I made some sort of noise to try and stop the buck. Anything I could do at that point.
Yeah.
He was, you know, a short few seconds away from being on private. And anyways, he stopped and he was kind of facing away, but I remember I'm looking through my scope at this point, and he like took one step to the left and shifted his shoulders just enough so we could look back and see what the noise was. And so it was a quartering away shot, but he at first when he stopped, I was like, man, I don't have a shot. I mean, it just wouldn't be good to shoot him how he is right now. But when he shifted his shoulders, I was like, okay, I can hard quartering away shot. I'll be good.
They call it the Texas heart shot, in case you were wondering.
That's basically the shot that I would have had. And so he turns, and I could just tell by the way he was acting, he wasn't gonna. It's not like he was gonna stand there and see what the noise was. He was, gonna stop and then take off again, and would have been gone forever. And I think I asked Jared how far he was, and before Jared could even get anything out, the gun went off. I heard him say 3. He started to say 3, and I think it was about 3:30. But as soon as he said 3, I knew I was, in the ballpark, and I was going to be fine. So I heard 3, and I squeezed, and that buck went down as hard as any deer I've ever seen go down.
That feels good.
Yeah, it felt real good because it was a pretty rough rushed situation. You know, it's not like I had a ton of time on the shot or whatever, but, you know, I was laying down with a bipod and super steady, practiced quite a bit going into that hunt. But yeah, anyways, so it all happened just so quick, and I was a little bit disbelief here. You know, like I said, I had like a week and a half to hunt, not expecting to even see a deer I want to shoot, let alone shoot a deer. And, you know, we're probably 45 minutes into our first morning of a week and a half that I have to hunt. And I'm tagged out. So it was pretty surreal. You know, it took me a second for it to sink in. But, you know, Jared, like I said, he was super selfless, and he was basically the one who told me to get on the gun and shoot the deer, because he knew I had a chance of getting him killed, and he didn't where he was and whatnot. But, yeah, so we sat there. I called my dad, and at first I don't think my dad believed me, because usually, you know, I'm fairly picky when I go home, and you know, I told him when I called him right away, he's like, "You kill one?" And I think he was asking, like, you know, did me or did one of the guys I'm with kill one? And I said, yeah. And I said, I kind of explained to him, and I said, I shot one. And he's like, wait, what? He's like, you shot one? He's like, oh, man, it must be a pretty good buck for you to shoot one up this early.
That's awesome,
yeah,
dude.
It was cool. And we, you know, gathered up our stuff and walked down there. And, yeah, I mean, he's everything that we thought he was. Definitely no ground shrinkage there on that buck. But, yeah, it was just a super cool experience. You know, great Montana public land whitetail, or great whitetail anywhere, I think. You know, I'm not a whitetail hunter myself specifically, but, you know, I've seen enough whitetails over where I'm from and whatnot that I know when I see a good one, and that one was definitely one that got me real excited.
Yeah, dude, I kind of had some reservations when I started sending you pics of the bucks I shot in November. I was like, these are babies compared to what he shot. But you took it well. You're a good friend, and let me know that you're proud of me for shooting big 8 points.
Oh, absolutely. I love big 8 points, especially. Yeah, and you got it down on some archery bucks, didn't you?
Yeah, they were both archery and both public land too. Yeah.
Oh, so. See, I mean, yeah, I've been chasing around. I've got an extra archery tag, as I said, and been chasing around a few whitetails with the bow. And man, it's you know, it's one thing to get it done with a rifle, but you know, if I had a bow in my hand with that buck the way that he was, I don't want to say impossible, but to get it done with a bow is definitely a different story.
Yeah, that we hunt some open country stuff, and it's tough with a bow, man, to do out there like that, and on the ground especially. And man, I felt like I was kind of listening to like almost like a military story. It seemed like that your buddy Jared was like coordinating the airstrike on the map and like making sure that he was still on BLM, and then he was ranging for you. Like, this dude is a friend, man. Like, that's a good guy to have in the field with you for sure.
Absolutely. Especially like I said, you know, I mean, he had spotted the buck, and that's kind of, you know, a general unwritten rule that we have is, you know, you kind of, if you spot it, you have first option. You know, if it's not a deer you want to shoot, then, you know, whoever you're with, and so on and so forth. But it all just happens so quick. And, you know, Jared's in between rifles kind of right now. And so he shoots mine sometimes, but he does have he's been shooting a lever 30-30 with a scope on it. I mean, he's extremely deadly and accurate with that thing. But, you know, that buck was right on like the distance threshold that he kind of wanted to shoot.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking about it or, you know, trying to grab my rifle, he's like, just get on the rifle, kill him. And so, yeah, no, it was super cool.
What kind of rifle are you using?
I've got a 7 mag.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, baby.
That I've been shooting. Yeah. Yep. So it's, you know, it's obviously still a little ways, but very comfortable with that type of shot. So he was like, just get on the rifle. And that deer, who knows if we would ever seen that deer again. It was some pretty nasty country with some deep draws and some junipers, and he just happened to be, you know, crossing through that chunk of BLM that we were on. I mean, that deer was headed up deep into private, and who knows if he would have even crossed back through that piece of public again. So, it's kind of one of those let's get it done while we can situations, and it all worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you and I were talking about packs this summer a lot. I think you had just bought a Kafaru of some sort. Is that how you got that deer out of there? I know in some states you have to bring it out whole. Like, how did y'all get the deer out of there?
Yeah, definitely. We quartered and packed that thing out. It would have been probably 1.5 to 1.75 miles. So, I mean, we weren't in super far, but it was like up and over a pretty steep bluff and down through some like pretty gnarly like drainages and stuff. That would have been a miserable drag.
Yeah.
So yeah, the second that we got up to him, we're like, yeah, he's coming out on our backs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so here in Montana, we take everything. We took neck meat, rib meat, everything. But if I am not mistaken, I'm pretty sure what you're required to take is like, you have to leave proof of sex on the meat. But the quarters, back straps, loins, I think are the only things you're required. But I always take, the extra meat as well, the neck and the rib meat. So I'm not too concerned with requirements since I take pretty much everything anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Jared and I, got down there, took some photos. He made some coffee, and we just kind of sat there and enjoyed, the morning as the sun was still coming up. And
That's cool.
Yeah, we quartered him out, threw him on our packs. Like you said, I have that Kafaru. I love that thing. And threw him in the packs and hiked out and went and tried to find Jared a deer.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, what I'm kind of interested in is more that rifle side of things, because we live in a state that has a pretty generous rifle season, and then y'all do quite a bit of gun hunting in Montana, and then kind of there's this space in between us all at the Midwest where it's like you get some hardcore bow guys who like they don't even touch a gun, which to each his own or whatever. But in Montana, I know there's kind of the culture of when it's gun season, you pick up the gun and go gun hunting. Is that kind of how you feel about things?
That's definitely how I feel about things. It is interesting in the sense of, I do know some guys in Montana that, were born and raised in Montana that still only bow hunt. I know some guys in Montana that still only, traditional bow hunt, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. They're real skinny, right? They don't have a lot of food. So.
Yeah, I know some that are killers actually, but yeah. But for me, I typically kind of like how I typically go into the season is I'm going to hunt elk with my bow until I am lucky enough to harvest a bull and fill my tag. And then once seasons switch, hopefully I got it done with my bow during elk season, then I can focus on deer. But I don't spend a whole lot of time during archery season hunting deer. It's just not something that I've grown up doing. I want to get into it more. I've spent some time, in some tree stands and ground blinds growing up and hunting whitetail here or there. But I would say my main focus during archery season is elk. Obviously the rut is during, that time of year, and I feel much more confident going into the elk woods with a bow in my hand in September than I do with a rifle in my hands in November.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a weird deal. I've had success with the bow on elk, and rifles it's tougher. So I spend a lot of time hunting elk with a bow, and then once rifle season hits, I'm kind of, it's time to pick up the rifle and get after some deer.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of how I've grown up in the past few years of kind of really concentrated on the bow, partially because most of our public stuff down here in Texas is archery only, so it's kind of by necessity. But I love the kind of assurance of carrying a rifle if you're well practiced and you've got faith in your tool. Like there's something that feels good about going out in the field that way. And it sounds like you took kind of not you wouldn't call it a rushed shot, but a shot that you had to take in a hurry. So I'm sure there had to be some practice and stuff involved. Are you dialing on a scope, or are you doing the whole just kind of calculating? All right, 330 with 7 mag, hold the top of the back, and you're going to hit right in the vitals, kind of thing.
No, I do dial. I've got so that rifle setup. It's I don't want to say overkill because I love that rifle and shooting it.
Oh, that's what I hunt with in Texas, and our deer are half the size of yours. So it's
yeah, for sure. But no, I've got a scope on it to where I dial, and it's one of those things. I know my dial out to like 400 yards. And then I do have like a ballistics app, and I screenshot that the ballistics chart, put it on my phone. As well as this year, I even picked up a SIG rangefinder that I basically put all my ballistics into, and then it will read various things like temperature, barometric pressure, etc., to give me a readout. But anything under that 350, 400 mark, I just know where that gun shoots and what it needs to be dialed to.
Yeah.
And so as that buck took off and I was getting on the ground, I remembered I dialed up to 2 minutes, which is I'm good there between 3 and 350, even at 400 would be fine. But I know at like about 325 is right where my rifle's at for 2. So, I held right on that buck when he stopped, which I think for me works. I hunt with a lot of people who do hold over. And it, whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you're practiced with is what you should go with. And a lot of people are super successful with that. But I just really like the precision of being able to like hold right on where I want that bullet to hit.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of intuitive, right? I've done the holdover thing some, and I think it's good to know that kind of stats, and in case you need to take a rush shot or a follow up or something like that. But it just feels good to put the crosshairs where the bullet's going to go. It just makes sense.
For sure. And that, that definitely is an argument with like a rush shot, but even, me being rushed in that situation, I feel like it's just second nature now, to dial that scope. Like I had that thing set on 2 minutes and, I didn't even realize I did it, but it's just subconsciously I did it. So it doesn't take much time. And, I actually I've been shooting a single pin sight on my bow too, which, that's kind of not really controversial, but a lot of people don't think that's the way to go. But, I leave it set on 30 yards and then I've got a little mark where 40 hits. So I'm good all the way out to 40 yards with that single pin, like dialed. Anything beyond that, I feel like for the split second that it takes to dial that thing to 46 yards or wherever I'm shooting, like I shoot way more confidently and accurately with that single pin. So like I'm willing to sacrifice that split second that it takes, to get that on the exact yardage. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're a man of precision, man, and that's pretty cool. So what's the rest of the season look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, our seasons in Montana are pretty much wrapped up. I've got a freezer full of meat, so I'm not going to be hitting any like late season elk hunts or anything like that. I do have an extra archery whitetail tag to where I can shoot either a buck or a doe with that up until mid-January. So I've been getting out after that a little bit. It's just been pretty challenging, post-rut, and a lot of the stuff that I'm hunting is pretty open. It's more like spot and stock style archery hunting with a bow.
It's tough, yeah.
So it's, I can go out and see deer and get on deer, but to get under 100 yards of a buck that's, cruising or just feeding in some open terrain, it's been really challenging. But yeah, I mean, I'll get after that. And then, show season's coming up for OnX. So I'll be pretty busy, January into February at a bunch of trade shows and whatnot. So kind of wrapping down. I am going this weekend for my first time of the year waterfowl hunting. We're going to go try and turn up some geese and some mallards this weekend.
Cool. Nice, man. That sounds like a good mixed bag. It's fun to shoot at big birds.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. And it's just a little bit, it's different for me in the sense that I don't waterfowl hunt very much, but when I do, it's just a more laid back environment for me personally. I don't take it quite as seriously. I'm not, stressed out if I miss a bird.
Yeah.
So it's a nice kind of laid back environment, different change of pace.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Well, don't freeze to death doing that because I can only imagine how cold it is in waders in Montana. But, dude, good luck with the rest of the season and take plenty of emergency before show season starts because it gets kind of crazy. But otherwise, I'm sure we'll see you at a show, and who knows, man, we might talk you into coming down here and shooting some pigs.
Yeah, I'm definitely open to that conversation. Let's catch up at some shows and make something happen. And two, for anybody listening who wants to like actually see that story, basically we, as I said, for this OnX hunt, we took as much content as possible and we compiled it into some stories that we ran on the OnX Instagram. We did save those by like day. So if you just go to the OnX hunt Instagram, under the save stories, it's like, I think it's OnX Deer Day 1 or Part 1, and then we've got a Part 2, Part 3. There was a lot of other, not to spoil it, go check it out for sure, but Matt here at OnX was super fortunate enough to harvest another super great whitetail on the trip that we got all on film and photos, and several other bucks were shot. So it was a super cool, successful trip. But yeah, go to the OnX on Instagram and check out the save stories to kind of click through them.
Yeah, and y'all stories actually are really fun to watch. It's not like that thing. It's not like it drudges on. Like there's a lot of action, a lot of the good fun that we like to have as hunters and stuff. And while y'all are looking at that story, you should go and download the OnX Hunt app because. If you listen to this podcast, there a lot of what Tyler and I do, it just could not be done without OnX. So thank you all for making a great product. I actually called in the troops from the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, in the wilderness because I needed some help with some trails and stuff. So and Dylan helped me out with some stuff from the middle of nowhere this past fall. So thanks, man. Appreciate all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate everything you guys are doing and all the support. So hopefully you guys can, after this call, get on a nice buck and send me pictures within the hour.
Man, I hope that is the case,
Me
sir.
too.
We appreciate the well wishes. So I guess we will catch up with you later, man.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you, bro. Well, sometimes it pays to be good and it pays to be lucky and it pays to be both of those things. And it sounds like Dylan's good. But he was lucky that it happened as fast as it did that morning.
Yeah.
And he's got a good buddy. And dude, you cannot overvalue the importance of a good hunting partner. And that's something I appreciate in you. Pound that, sir. and apparently him and his buddy are the same way, like just selfless. And Dylan was definitely the benefactor of that. But I'm sure that if it was the opposite situation, he would have done the exact same thing. But toad buck, man, and they're just, man, those Montana bucks are gnarly.
Yeah, they are.
You know what I mean? They're like,
I don't know. I feel like those deer, they're like, they don't really grow long tines a lot of times, but like they always have like this kind of like rack, like mass compact rack kind of thing going on where it's just like, I don't know. You know me. I like a heavy buck. Man.
You were in
I
that
like
mass.
I love it, man.
Yeah, Tyler. He'll tell you that time link's most important, but
To
deep
score,
down
it is.
inside,
The score
Tyler
it is.
wants a massive buck.
I like a buck. I think like overall, I like a buck that's just like when you look at him from the front, you're like, man, that's a frame. You know what I mean? So if it's just big G2s and decent main beams, then that probably, like I like that buck a lot. But a like basket 8 that's heavy is like also like an acceptable deer for me.
So
to
you're
shoot.
telling me like what you really want is a deer that's got like really big G2s and G3s, but it's also like got a big frame, it's wide, and then it also is massive.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So-
I got what you
so
like.
150 plus. yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I haven't
Well,
shot one of those in a
we
while.
did not see one of those today. As we kind of stated earlier,
Yeah.
we had a tough day on Texas Pub. That's how it goes. You had a good day on Texas Public about a month ago.
Yeah, a little over a month ago. I did. Barely over a month ago. Man, it feels so long ago.
I
But
know.
Also, it's like, how did it go that fast? But yeah, we released that video. I shot a buck. I didn't even realize this because it was just such a crazy trip. But I shot a deer or doe the morning before. So back
24
to back
hours
days,
later.
back to back days, I shot deer on Texas Public. So those videos both are separate, but online right now on YouTube. Go check them out. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Don't ask us where it was because we've had that question already several times.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all just probably our weekly public service announcement here at the Element is that man, we'll help you out if you reach out to us or whatever, as good as we can. We're not experts at this stuff, but we spend a lot of time on Texas Public, but we're not going to tell you where we're hunting.
Yeah.
It's just,
I mean, we've
it's
had
just one of
guys
those
send
things.
us like screenshots of their places and say, hey, what would you do?
Yeah.
Or just like, hey, I'm starting to hunt public. What would you do?
Yeah.
Man, I mean, we can give some advice as far as what we would do. Not that it's that great, but it might be.
Not that it's a good idea, but it's something to do.
Yeah, and so, we're not going to necessarily tell you where we're hunting, but that's okay, man. I mean, it really just, it's not that we're trying to be selfish or anything. It's just that, man, we've put in so many hours into it that it's hard for us to like justify to our families, hey, I'm going to not see you tonight, because you're going to go to bed before I get back home or whatever. But then I'm going to go out there and hunt a place that's been blasted by a guy or two that I may have told where I'm hunting. You know what I mean? It's just not fair to our families. So there's several different factors. I think most of you guys understand. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. While you're on YouTube looking at those videos, there's a little buck, or it is kind of a little buck, a little video, I mean, big old gnarly buck that Tyler shot last year. That's been getting a ton of traction all of a sudden, which is really cool.
Let me let some heat out right here.
If you've watched that lately, it's called Oldest Buck Ever, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what I titled it.
And it's the story of Tyler's hunt for a buck that he calls Frankenstein. That
I didn't name it.
Old Anthony Warren, he lost a broadhead to that deer at one point in time.
Yeah, I did.
He's been a guest on the podcast a couple times, but it's a deer that has a ton of history. And it's getting a ton of views right now, so thank y'all for if you've been watching that or you have watched it. If you haven't, go give that a watch. And also, your boy T might need a little defense on this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't think there's no foul done, right? Like we all have hit deer not exactly where we want to, and you made what you thought was the right choice to let this deer sit overnight and come back in the morning and get him, right? And it's not like you made a terrible shot on it. It's not like you shot him in the rear leg, right? No. You just hit him in the liver. And
one guy said it was the worst shot he had ever seen. I was like, man, you have not watched a whole lot of hunting then.
That's right.
I mean, I've seen some worse ones for sure.
I don't know, man. But either way, old Frank, he met his end that night, and then you just need to watch the video and see what all happened. But anyways,
there's been some ragers.
Don't be a rager. No matter if you're watching our videos or some person who actually is like completely a dummy, not us or anything, but like a real dummy. Tongue in cheek, guys. But just remember, be a good, nice person out there. Yeah. YouTube, in real life, it doesn't matter because you're behind the keyboard does not give you a good reason to be mean, people.
That's right, man. I've told several people, like, I just wish before you started cussing me out here on YouTube that you would have gotten to know me a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, these people are just making these big, broad assumptions, and I understand it. And when I was younger, probably did some similar things. I don't think I ever did this kind of thing necessarily, but I probably made assumptions. I definitely made assumptions about people too quickly when I was younger and that kind of thing. But man, we had a person send an email even after watching the video. And,
she was like a PETA person.
I mean, I don't know if she was or not. I don't know why she would watch it, but like, she commented on all this stuff, and then she told me that she wished I had terrible nightmares and all these different things. And so, and I tried to respond as cordially as possible and tell her all these things and tell her, like, look, no, as sad as this makes you, it makes me, I was responsible for it. Like, it makes me more sad. I promise you weren't as sad about it, and so, not to mention last year I went without shooting a deer for meat. You know what I mean? Yeah. You had to give me some spike meat, so like it was a tough year, and that means a lot to my family to have that meat. She said that there, you wouldn't have even ate that buck because it was so old and tough. Like, you have no clue.
I've never eaten a deer that was tough because it was old.
No, it's tough because you cook it done.
You
know what I mean? So anyway, it was we've seen some of that stuff. These people get on there and they have their ideas of, they've been hunting for 40,000 years and they've never let one stay overnight. And really, I've tried to tell people, but I'm done doing it. You can go back and listen to episode 21 where we had our buddy Justin Wright on, talking about dealing with the loss is the name of the episode. And Justin hit a deer low and back just a touch. I mean, to the point where I thought it was a heart shot when he first hit, but it ended up being a one lung liver, lots of blood. We thought we were going to find this deer dead in 100 yards. And I mean, you can see the video. It's a 2015 season video, I think is when it was. It's the year I killed One-Eyed Jack. But you can see the hit. You can see the deer walk off and everything. I mean, he's hurt, dude. And we come back 28 hours later to look for him. After we decided to pull out, we bumped him once. We came back and we found him again the next day, 28 hours later, and he is still up and he is still running from us. And we chased him for another several hours trying to got other shots at him. I mean, if you haven't heard the podcast, go back and listen to E21. This is a similar hit to what I dealt with Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. It's a low and back, which is a liver, but you know, there was a lot of blood with Justin's deer, more than with Frank. So the only thing I could do from my experience was leave this deer overnight. I mean, if I bump the deer in the dark and have no clue about it, then I lose this deer indefinitely. I mean, and don't get any, like, you know, closure to the situation at all. So I mean, it's not something that I took lightly. It's not something that I went back to the room and just, you know, was like, I'm just going to turn the TV on and veg out. You know what I mean? Like, I thought about it all night, and I got good sleep. You know, it's not like I lost sleep over it or anything because I sleep like a rock, you know, and I had peace of mind going to sleep that I was making the right decision. So it just is what it is, man. But like KC's point is really the key point here. Don't be going raging people that you don't know a whole lot about their situation, their backstory, or who they are. Even make sure you get to know people. It's
also good to ask questions and learn.
Sure, I've appreciated the questions that have come to us.
Yes,
so.
Exactly. But there's always a kind way to do just about near anything.
Yep, that's right, man.
Just take that approach in YouTube and in life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You and me were having some fun before we got on the podcast just a second ago talking about this whole situation because I don't know. People make some ridiculous comments about it, but anyway, it's doing well right now. So I guess that's good for us. I don't love that that's the one that's doing well, but it's okay. It's something that most people in the industry I feel are afraid to show, that kind of thing. And I know it happens, and you don't see many videos of it, so it probably is shocking to other people. But we always just put it out there and tell the truth, and people can make of it what they want. So anyway, that being said, we are we're deep in the late season right now. Still trying to figure out our next few weeks. We're hoping to get back to Kansas one more time. I know KC's chomping at the bit. And, other than that, if you're looking for a good cheap Christmas present, we've got T-shirts online for $20. I mean, dude, you can't get a soft T-shirt for $20 anywhere. And we've got them for sale. They're nice. They're neat. We're not trying to make money.
And with the best graphic that there actually is on a T-shirt.
Dude,
I mean, come on.
Who doesn't want to shoot an 8-point under an oak tree?
That's
you know
right.
What I mean? Like,
with exposed roots.
With exposed roots, man. Floating in the air.
That's right.
Goodness, it's the best. So you can order a Christmas present at the website, which is theelementwild.com. It'll be linked underneath here in the show notes. And also, KC made the point, but yeah, OnX, man, check them out. Good people who work there. We know the owner as well, and he's a super nice guy, man. Like, cares to listen to people, cares about people, which is not something you find in guys that are doing really well in life sometimes. So, with that said, go check it out. Use that. Go check the website out and get you some Christmas swag, and get back out in the woods, man. It's not over, especially if you live in the South. There's a lot going on still, and there's good temperatures. You know, you don't have to deal with that at 5 degrees if you live in the South. So very often, which I was actually editing Kansas film earlier today, and I meant to tell you this, but I was doing an interview and I was like, okay, so it's 0 degrees this morning. And I was like, I forgot about that, dude.
Man.
That was bad.
It's weird, man. It was so cold in November.
It was. That was early November, too.
Yeah, December's been kind of mild, but hopefully we'll get a little more cold weather and get them deer up and rolling and going some food.
Getting some carbs.
Yep.
So anyway, I'm going to go get me some carbs here in a second. I think a little afternoon snack. But guys, thanks for listening. God bless you. And remember, this is your element.
Living it.
It's a rain.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.